So, this is quite an experimental course. It's, as you know, it's called Heaven and Hell in English Poetry. And as no doubt you've read from the description, we are focusing on the works of Shakespeare, Milton and Blake. And the reason that, okay, this is from the Blake website anyway. The reason that we are doing this is because we have a string, or at least as I see it, the string of these three poets in the way that they have focused on the subject of heaven and hell. And that is that Milton was extensively inspired by Shakespeare. I don't know if you know, but it's very recent discovery is that they've actually found Milton's copy of Shakespeare's complete works. It was found in there was this scholar of Milton who saw it online, and what he saw was that in this library in, I think it was Massachusetts, somewhere, the librarian had put online this very, very well annotated copy of Shakespeare, and it was written with a lot of notes, and the was the first edition of Shakespeare. So, and the person who had written these notes somehow was able to foresee which parts of Shakespeare were going to be the most famous parts, like, you know, the things about hi, welcome. No problem. The things about, you know, the world is a stage and each of us must play a part, and many, many other famous quotations from Shakespeare were underlined, like exactly those that have become famous. And this Milton scholar in England saw the facsimile online, and he recognized the handwriting. He said, "This is Milton's handwriting," and so it's really very exciting. And the thing is that we still can't be 100% sure that it was Milton's copy, but we can be pretty sure because the things that he has underlined, he has used in his work. So, and then of course we have the next line in this chain is Milton. Is Blake, and Blake was extremely inspired by Milton, and he even has a very famous poem called Milton. That's this book actually. It's quite a long poem. It's an epic, and the introduction to Milton, it has become extremely important. Does anyone know this introduction? The introduction to Milton. Okay, if I read the first few lines of it, I think you will probably okay. Oh, okay. And did those feet in ancient times walk upon England's mountain green? And was the holy Lamb of God on England's pleasant pastures seen? And did the countenance divine shine forth upon our clouded hills? And was Jerusalem builded here among these dark satanic mills? Does anyone recognize this? It's basically, this is it's an unofficial national anthem of England.
So Jerusalem is a metaphor for London?
Well, Jerusalem is kind of a metaphor for heaven, you know, for the ideal state. And so you know what I mean, right? It's okay. So unfortunately, I'm not a big singer, but this poem, or this introduction to Milton, has become. I don't know if you've seen, you know, in the Royal Albert Hall, there's the first night of the prom, the last night of the proms. They sing this song always because it's, you know, it's not God Save the Queen, which is the official national anthem, but it's up there with Rule Britannia. So yeah. It's and it's interesting that a poem by Blake has become an unofficial national anthem of England, because Blake was such a revolutionary poet. And well, I'm going to ask you soon, each one of you, which of these poets you know, and where your chief interest lies, but it's interesting for me to see that line, because Blake, what he has done in the poem Milton is he's looked at what Milton was trying to do at that time. Milton was well, do you know something about the life of Milton? So Milton was he was a minister in the government of Oliver Cromwell. And Oliver Cromwell was the leader of, well, you know about Oliver Cromwell? Yes. Yes. He was the leader of the Roundheads of the Republicans. So this was after the English Revolution, when they got rid of the monarchy and they had a republic. And hi, great, thanks so much, thank you. So they had a republic, and they were very, very Puritan. They were very Puritan, very, very Protestant in their beliefs, and they got rid of. It's a bit exaggerated to say, perhaps, but it was a kind of a. You could compare it a bit with with the Taliban, okay, because it's like you were not allowed. There was no dancing, yeah, because it was not properly religious, etc. And so the weight was upon each person's responsibility to be close to God. And so Milton was very idealistic about these things. But when the revolution ended and they started to reinstate the monarchy, Milton went into hiding. But later they decided not to execute him because he was blind at the time. He wasn't a dangerous man, you know. He was mostly he was a poet, and this was during the reinstatement that he started writing Paradise Lost. And you could say, in a sense, that Paradise Lost is kind of this central work in this course, because Paradise Lost is I'm sure you know it is this poem. It's a very long poem, which explains what happens, the things that the Bible doesn't tell you. And we don't really know where Milton got it from. But the interesting thing that I find is that reading Paradise Lost, I have found things in Paradise Lost that it was just as if, oh, I knew these things, but I thought they were from the Bible, or I thought that they were from something more canonical. But it's as if Paradise Lost filled in some blanks and have become such a big part of our culture. So the thing that Milton wanted to do in Paradise Lost was that he wanted to explain God's point of view to man, which is quite an ambitious thing to do. So it's quite a big subject matter, and we're going to look at all these different works. We're going to look at plays by Shakespeare, with little parts of them. So we're going to look at Richard III, we're going to look at Othello as well. And because those are plays that have to do with malevolence and that have to do with evil and hell. And we're going to look, of course, at Paradise Lost and at various works by Blake. And so what I would say for when it comes to reading for this course, stuff that we can actually just I'll just switch this off for a while if I can. Okay. Does it annoy you, this blue, or can I leave it? Okay. So the thing about that we can read, we don't have time, obviously, nobody has time to read Paradise Lost in these short 3 weeks. And hi, welcome. And and people probably don't have time to read a play or to read the full poem Milton. However, there are 2 very short books by Blake which are central to this theme and which I would recommend that you read. They're very short, and I don't know, you have probably heard of them. The first one is The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, and the second one is The Songs of Innocence and Experience. These are very short books. You have here, this is The Songs of Innocence and Experience. So, and The Marriage of Heaven and Hell is even shorter. However, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, just like The Songs of Innocence and Experience, is an extremely, it packs a very tight punch, because it's so compressed. It's really like the Marriage of Heaven and Hell is only a few pages, but it's so, I don't know, it's so intense and it's so revolutionary that you can get a lot out of reading those few pages. So at the same time, I would also like this to be an active course. So we're going to look at sonnets. So we're not just Shakespeare's sonnets, but we're going to look at various sonnets. We're going to focus on Shakespeare, but we're going to also compare him with various other poets. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the sonnet form, and we're going to look at the various sonnet forms there are, the most famous sonnet forms. And hi, welcome. I would like, if some people are willing to at the end of the course or somewhere along the way, to recite a sonnet. And this is because, well, when poetry is something you need to feel in your body. It's not just something that you sit and read. You can sit and just read it, but when you read it aloud, when you recite it, then it comes through your body, and you feel the rhythm of the poetry, and it's a different experience. And also, since we're going to look at the sonnet form, the thing is that there's a fixed formula for sonnets, and well, there are several formulas, but the two main ones are the Shakespearean sonnet and the Petrarchan sonnet. So what fits best for English is the Shakespearean sonnet, and the Petrarchan sonnet comes from Italian because the sonnet was invented in Italy. Well, invented in inverted commas, because it seems that it comes from some folkloric poems, but it was taken over by poets, and it turned out to be a very useful structure for poetry. So what happened was that it was adapted in England because it didn't fit very well with English, because the Petrarchan sonnet is a sonnet that has one octet and one sestet, which means like two very big blocks of, and how many lines does a sonnet have? A sonnet has 14 lines, and there are various ways of defining a sonnet. Like, people have really tried to do it, but there are so many different variations of sonnets, and that means that it turns out that we're left with just that a sonnet has 14 lines, so that anything that has 14 lines can be called a sonnet. But there are certain forms that people tend to stick to. So we'll focus mostly on the Shakespearean sonnet. And another thing that I would like very much is if some of you would like to write a sonnet, because the sonnet, if we look at how the sonnets are, the Shakespearean sonnet, it's laid out as a structure, and all you have to do is follow the structure and you've got a sonnet. So I think this could be a very, very interesting experiment, and I would also be willing to write a sonnet. So and we can recite our sonnets in the last session. So now I would like, since this is quite an experimental course and it is a very big subject, I would like to hear what each person's interest is, and we can start with you.